So one came, then two, then three. We ended up with 10 officers, 7 cop cars.
We are joined by Pastor Alin Armstrong to speak about the ticket that he received for preaching in the park. Alin, what's going on? Thank you for being here. Thanks for your patience. We were in an argument here, but thank you for being
It's
here.
okay. I was just catching the end of the Habs game, so I was able to watch them,
nice.
so it's all good.
I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your time.
But by the way, before we get into this, how did you manage to get a dog treat company to sponsor a political podcast? That's some good work.
The owner of the business, is a massive conservative. Like, she's a conservative like me, not a big C conservative, a small C conservative. Just the fact that she comes from Manitoba, that answers your question.
Well, this is usually with the political stuff. It's like a Bitcoin exchange or a gold exchange or something. You don't really hear about that. It's cool though. I like
some of that Bitcoin money.
Yeah.
Her food's amazing. Like her dog food. I got a big German Shepherd.
Sounds better than most human food.
Everything is you could eat it.
Oh yeah.
It's like beef jerky. She eats my dog eats bison. She eats venison. I think she eats better food than I do. Really.
Probably.
That being said, man, one of my buddies sent me a YouTube video of yours, and I've known this guy for 20 years. He's like, hey, bro, you need to have this guy on your show. So, okay. So I looked you up. I looked at the video. I'm like, yep, I can see that happening. That makes sense to me. Of course, it's happening to Christians, of course. So you want to explain to us what happened? Because, like I said, you were preaching in a park and you got ticketed for it. So please explain to us what happened.
Well, it's a bit of a long story. I'll try to keep it as succinct as I can. Essentially, the backstory is during COVID, my church was renting a space to meet, and we weren't enforcing masks and things like that. And then we got kicked out. We got evicted from the building. And so we had nowhere to go. And we thought, well, let's just meet in the park. And so that's what we did. We started meeting in the park. And ironically, we never got in trouble, even though we were above the limits and everything like that. We never ended up getting in trouble when COVID rules were on. But it wasn't until 2023. So the video you saw, that happened actually in 2023. And I reposted it now just because of the discussion around Bill C-9. And everybody's saying, oh, the Bible's not illegal, or they're not, criminalizing the Bible. And I'm like, well, it kind of already is illegal. It just depends who you are and where you are, right? If you stay in your house or you have a nice church building and you read your Bible, they'll leave you alone. But if you go out in public and you read the Bible and you preach from the Bible, then all it takes is one person to not like it and to call the authorities for you to all of a sudden be in some hot water. And that's what happened to me. So in 2023, we went back out into the park because we thought we're going to do some public worship. It's nice out. And we're a small church, so, it is what it is. So we were meeting in the park for a couple weeks, actually for a couple months, and didn't have a problem. I used to bring my portable barbecue, and we'd have burgers and hot dogs, and the kids would come from the neighborhood, and we'd give them burgers, and we had like an axe throw, and it was like a fun time.
Nice.
And nobody complained. Everybody loved us. I mean, why wouldn't you? We're giving you free food, right? So one particular Sunday I was preaching, and before we set up for the service, and all we had was like a little speaker and a tent, like a little canopy for shade. And a Parks and Rec employee came out of the building and said I couldn't be there. And I said, well, I don't think you're right. I think I can. And she goes, no, you can't be here. You have to leave. And I literally told the Parks and Rec person, I said, just go call the police. I'll talk to them. And so she left. We had our service and nothing happened. So that week, and I actually waited for the police. I got there at 9 a.m. I stayed till 2. Nobody came. So that week, I actually called the police, the non-emergency line, and I think in my video, if it's the one that I think you saw, I put the recording of my conversation in that video with the officer, where I said, "Hey, here's what I didn't put the whole recording because it would have been too long. I just put what is relevant." But basically, the conversation went, "Hey, I was at the park. I was meeting with some people for worship, and the Parks and Rec employees told me I needed a permit. Do I need a permit?" And the officer said, "Well, how many do you have?" I said, "I don't know, 10, 15 or so, nothing crazy." And he said, "Well, the bylaw says you don't need a permit for anything under 25 people. So you're good. No problem. If they come back, or if they call us, just point them to the bylaw, you'll be okay." So I said, "All right, no problem." And that Sunday came, and there was like a baseball tournament going on in that park, so there's people everywhere. It was packed, and we were just kind of a little gathering. If you just looked at the park, if you were walking by the park, you would have thought we were just another group with the baseball thing, because we just blended in. As I started preaching, it wasn't very long into my sermon that I saw 2 police cars. And the way that the park is set up is there's a big parking lot, and then there's like a concrete trail, and that brings you to all the different things. And the concrete trail is wide enough for a car to drive on. They pulled up on the trail, and I'm like, okay, they're here for me, right? I thought for sure they're here for me. Why else would they be here? And so 1 came, then 2, then 3, then we ended up with like 7 cop cars, 10 officers, 7 cars.
That's crazy, man. And you see that again and again when they do these nonsense overreactions.
It was overkill. I mean, it's Sunday
crazy.
morning, and maybe they didn't have anything better to do, but it was still overkill. And it was a woman officer. It's always a woman officer. Sorry. Yeah. It always is.
It's true. It's so true.
Yeah. It just is. And she gets out and she's power tripping. "You can't be here. You can't be here." I said, "Well," because I was genuinely confused. I'm like, I just called you guys, right? Like, I just talked to you guys about this exact thing I was going to do right now. And "You can't be here. You can't be here." I said, "Why?" She said, you have a microphone." I said, "Okay, I'll turn it off. I don't really need it. I'll turn it off." Then she went and she talked to the Parks and Rec employee, she was kind of hanging out. So she went and she had a chat.
Was it the ssame employie who had given you shit?
I think it
earlier?
was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the same one from last week, the week prior. And after she came back, she said, "Okay, you got to leave now." And I said, "Why?" "I turned off my microphone. What's the problem?" And she said, "Well, now you're trespassing." And I'm like,
"What?
You can't just change the rules, right? You can't just like mid-game change the rules on me here. What are you doing?" Right? I said, "What do you mean I'm trespassing? What am I doing that's unlawful?" And she was really aggressive. "You gotta leave." And I tried to reason with her and get an explanation. Like, what did I do that was unlawful? They wouldn't tell me. All they kept saying was, "You're being trespassed. That is your infraction. Your infraction is trespassing." And I said, "Okay, I understand trespassing, but on public property, how is it possible to trespass in a public park unless I'm doing something unlawful in the public park, like threatening people, vandalizing, something like that?"
Yeah.
I said, so I tried to get them to tell me what is the unlawful thing. Like, okay, you can't just trespass someone in public. You can trespass somebody in private, right? Like if someone comes to your house, you could just say leave. You don't have to give them a reason.
It sounds like
you have to leave. But
Alan,
here, I have my ticket.
Sorry,
you want to see my ticket?
Yes, please.
While you're grabbing this, it says that trespassing on public park, for example, it involves entering premises where entry is prohibited, engaging in prohibited activities, or refusing to leave when ordered by an authorized person.
But there should have to be a reason to order them to leave, right? It sounds like they kind of did this trumped up charge on you with the microphone thing, and then once, even though you proved yourself like by just taking care, like, okay, I'm not going to use a microphone, they then use this trumped up charge to justify the trespass.
Yeah, they moved the goalposts in the middle of the game. And anyways, so my ticket says I committed the offense of engaging in prohibited activity. So I asked them what, because they gave me the ticket, and it was funny when I was talking to the officer.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, he's writing the ticket, and he's like, "You're getting a ticket for," and he kind of mumbled. I said, "What?" And he said, "Prohibited activity." I'm like, "What is that? What's prohibited activity?" And he goes, "It's just prohibited activity." Like, can you name the activity I was doing that's prohibited? He wouldn't name it.
That's wild.
So like, I'm like, okay, you know what? I asked him, I said, "What's going to happen if I just don't leave?" They said, "We'll arrest you." And my kids were there, and they were like 3 years old at the time, and I didn't want to traumatize them even more than they already were. Yeah. So I said, "Okay, fine, I'll leave." I said, "Can I come back? When can I come back?" And the officer went and talked with their superiors and came back and said, "Never. You can never come back. You're banned for life." I'm like, "You're treating me like a pedophile now." Like,
you're banned from the park.
I got banned from the park. I still go. I don't care.
They're not even banning pedophiles from parks.
Right. I know, you're treating me worse than a pedophile.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, anyways, yeah, so that those were the charges: engaging in prohibited activity. They wouldn't tell me the prohibited activity. They threatened me with arrest if I didn't leave. And so I ended up leaving. And you know what the funny thing about this whole situation was? I actually was breaking the law. I was illegally parked.
They miss it. They miss the low-hanging fruit.
This whole time I was illegally parked, and I knew I was illegally parked, and they decided to make this up. Now look, if you're gonna get called to a noise complaint, like if that was the issue, the microphone, I've never seen a police officer come to a noise complaint and say, "Hey, can you please turn it down? We got a noise complaint." And the person say, "No problem." And then them say, "You know what? We're gonna write you a ticket anyways."
Well, it's infuriating, because how many times do we see the pro-Palestine crowd with fucking bullhorns?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they never get told to turn it down. It's just like, so, you know, I don't know how much Nico told you about the show, but he said at the beginning, you know, I'm the liberal. So I am non-religious. I don't have any particular religious beliefs, but you know, I have a strong belief in fairness under the law, and just this shit boils my blood, because it offends my sense of justice. You can't have some rules that apply to some people but not to others. That is the number one way to fucking destroy your society from within.
Yeah. So anyways,
I was going to ask you, where are you from, by the way? Where was the park located?
Yeah, what province are we talking about?
I'm in Ontario. I don't want to name the city, but I'm in Ontario. Southern
so you're in Ontario, where we see pro-Palestine protests.
Where I live,
Palestine protests for 2-3 years, where Muslims are taking over parks. They block Bloor and Yonge,
blocking traffic,
the busiest intersection in Canada. No permit, no nothing. They're like 50 of them surrounded.
And they get police. They get police escort.
The police escort them.
Yeah, even here, I'm from Montreal, right? We have the Notre Dame Basilique, the Basilica of Notre Dame, which I would argue is the most beautiful church in Canada. They go outside. They go literally in the parking lot of the church to pray on Sundays, which has nothing to do with Islam. But they go there during service, yet acceptable, no problem. How do you feel about the fact that we're in Canada? Canada was built by Christians, and now we have this immigration, open border policies that we accept any behavior that makes no sense here, yet we accept it, and we treat people like you that did it properly. You called the police. They told you that you could do what you did. You actually informed them first. Then they show up 7 people. How much do you want to bet if you were brown? Let's be honest. If you were a Muslim, you would have never got that call.
No,
you would have never. They would have never showed up for
never.
it.
No. And that's
how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel as a pastor?
It would upset me if I didn't expect it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I could get upset about it, but I kind of expect it at this point. And so it's not really surprising. When it happened, I was upset when it happened, mainly because of my kids. They're still young, but they were young. They were like 3 years old or 4, or going on 4, 3 going on 4, whatever. Very young. And this is their first experience with the police. To this day, my kids are 8, 6 years old. To this day, they still think police are bad. Right?
Wow.
Because
It's
I mean,
so
think about it. You're a
crazy.
young kid, and all you're doing is you're with your dad. I have a picture of me with my two sons holding hands, and we're singing hymns in the park. What is more, what is more safe than that? Wholesome than that? And that's the day the cops came. And so they associate police with anti-Christian bias. And I didn't put this in their head, right?
And I don't think they're wrong.
But
I don't
before
Exactly.
this happened, yeah. Before this happened, I'll tell them, hey, the police are, they're neutral. They're, generally there to protect. And then this happened, and they're like, what? I remember the night of that day, putting our kids to bed. And we were just teaching them about, not in my sermon, but just in our daily Bible time with our kids, we were teaching them about the Exodus. And we were on the passage where the Israelites passed through the water, and then Pharaoh's army is drowned in the sea and all that. And my one son said, is God gonna kill the police? And I said, why do you say that? What makes you say that? And he said, well, because in the Bible, he killed the enemies of God, remember, in the sea. And they came against us, and we're the people of God, right? So is God going to kill them? And I was like, in my mind, I'm like,
it's logical.
The bro makes a good argument.
Well played, sir.
And I'm just like, well,
probably not.
I don't think God's going to kill the police, but he's certainly going to judge them for what they did. And if they don't repent, then they will certainly face the consequences for what they did. Maybe not in this life, but certainly in the next. So anyways, to answer your question, how do I feel about it? I don't like it. However, it is what it is now, and I'm trying to do everything I can to reverse that by being bold and by being faithful and by realizing that really this country is not going to get saved without Christianity. You said Christianity, this country was built on Christianity. Amen, it was. Brother. I mean, look at the charter. I have the charter on the Bill of Rights, not the bill. What do they call it again? The Charter of Rights. No, the Bill of Rights.
Rights and freedoms.
Canadian Bill of Rights and the charter both start with God. What God? It wasn't Allah. It wasn't Islam. Like, come on, you can't tell me that there were, So anyways, yeah. We need to get back to that. It's the only way. If you don't have a Christian foundation, what do you have? You have this. You have this weird secular diversity cult, which is suicidal empathy, I call it, where you coddle your enemies to your own destruction.
And you attack yourself. You attack yourself and the people. I mean, I don't know if you can see my tag there, but I grew up. I've progressed my whole life. I'm a moderate one. Now I consider myself an anti-woke liberal. There are a few of us out there, but that is how that's the best way to perceive woke, is a self-hating ideology. It hates everything to do with the West, really. So that means white people. That means Christianity. And we talk a lot about religion on the show. I'm not. I grew up very religious. I grew up Pentecostal, so I'm quite familiar with it. I for reasons far too much to go into right here, I am not religious, but there's one term that comes up. One of our guests had said it, and he called I think he was himself not religious, but he said he considered himself a cultural Christian. And I think I think that really resonated with me. And I think there's a lot of people out there who may not be practicing Christians, but they'll understand that term, and they would see themselves in it. Because like you said, the West has been created on Christian, Judeo-Christian values, and there are these things are worth protecting, and they're worth fighting for, and we don't need to be ashamed of them. We can be proud of them. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I'd rather live in a place that celebrates Christmas and honors the Christian days. Even Richard Dawkins came out recently and said, "Man, I think we need Christianity." And I'm like, "What?"
Well, I think Dawkins' arc mirrors mine a lot, I think.
But Rob, what he means by being a cultural Christian, is that as an atheist, you want to live in a Christian country, because we will accept that, because it's okay.
It's the only place that you should want to live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the point, right? And that's what Jeff Evely is, the guy that he's talking about, that made that comment. And same thing, he's an atheist, but he wouldn't want to live in any other country than a country that is Christian. That's why he calls it, I want to be somewhere where culturally it's Christian, because his values are going to be respected. We might not agree with you, but we're not going to hang you or throw you over buildings because you're sinning. We don't do it because that's not what we're supposed to do. So there's no better place to live than in a Christian country. But I know we don't have a lot of time, but hold on, we don't have that much time. I just wanted to ask you, because you mentioned something that I wanted to touch on. I'm happy that you mentioned it, but as a Christian pastor that seems to have the courage to speak, are you worried about Bill C-9? Because you brought it up earlier. This is something I talk about literally. Free speech is my biggest thing. I speak about this every day. So what are you worried about Bill C-9?
How do I say this? I'm not worried about it because I've already been defying government rules for so long that it's just whatever. But I am concerned about it. Like, here I'll put it this way. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's destructive. Mm-hmm. So I have no anxiety. I don't lay my head on my pillow and go, oh, I'm so anxious about what the government can do, because screw them. But I am concerned about it. And so in the sense of like, are you concerned? Yeah, I'm concerned, but I don't have anxiety. Because I lived it. I lived it before C-9. Like this trumped up bogus charge, which I fought and got thrown out. The judge probably saw this and was like, when I saw, it says here, $65. Like, am I a joke to you? $65? I called a lawyer and he said, yeah, that's the minimum. They just wanted you out. You did nothing wrong. They were just bullying you. So with C-9, this becomes hate speech and this becomes jail time.
Exactly. Yep.
That's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem I see. Is without C-9, they just bully you, you leave, you fight it, you move on. With C-9, now it's what did he say? Oh, what Bible verse did he read? Oh, okay, that's hate speech. Because what happened was there was a woman there, and my wife picked her out, who went to Parks and Rec, some liberal woman, and then they called the cops. And it was because that Sunday I was preaching in Revelation 13, the mark of the beast, of all Sundays.
Of course you were.
And look, I didn't go into the park saying, let's preach the mark of the beast. I was preaching through the whole book of Revelation, front to back, chapter 1 to chapter 22. That was just the verse I was on. Okay? So no one can like accuse me of you were inflaming people's. No. Watch the whole series. I preached the entire book. That was just happened to be the Sunday that I was preaching that. And I was talking about the COVID vax and how they're trying to force people to get this thing to keep their money. And it's not the mark of the beast, but it's sort of like it, right? You know, so there's some analogies here. She heard it, was offended, called the cops. Let me just say this, because this was the craziest thing, spiritually speaking, that happened during that time. In that passage, it talks about the beast who had, I think it's 7 heads and 10 crowns, something like that, 7 and 10. And there was 7 cop cars and 10 officers. And the Sunday before that happened, I remember telling our people, I said, I'm preaching on the mark of the beast. I'm exposing Satan's strategy. He attacks us through false religion. He attacks us through the state, and he attacks us through economic coercion. So I said, expect something to happen this week in your life, whether it'll be something from the state, money, false religion. I don't know, but the beast is going to attack us because I'm publicly exposing him. The next week that happened. The next week. And after it happened, I gathered everybody and I said, remember what I said last week? How the beast was going to come after us? So.
Wow, that's crazy.
Can't make it up. Like, we had 10 people, man. 10 people. and 10 officers, like one per person, including kids. Are you
so can you fight this? Is there a mechanism to fight it, or what's the plan?
I fought it. I challenged the ticket. I didn't even get a court date. They threw it out.
They just
it's probably
that's
for the
the
price.
shit that,
and they didn't even inform me they threw it out.
That shit just drives me
because online to see.
Because something we say around here a lot is the process is the punishment. They know that they don't have a fucking leg to stand on with this shit, and they know most people won't fight it. Right? Most people are cowed by the when they come face to face with the power of the state or whatever, and they just crumble. And that shit drives me nuts because they know they're not, what they're doing is wrong, and they're doing it anyways.
Yeah, because they can. I talked to a lawyer. I spent $500 to talk to like a top-notch lawyer for like 30 minutes just to see what are my options here. Can I sue the city? Can I do something? I want to punish them. I want them to feel the pain. And he said, your case is a slam dunk. You'll win. But it's not going to be worth the cost.
Yeah.
Like they're going to bring you through the ringer. You're going to end up spending $250,000, $300,000 for what? to make them feel like, and what's the punishment going to be? Nothing. It's just going to be like, okay, we're sorry we did this to you. So do you want to spend the money for it? And I said, no, forget it.
But you could have went for emotional damage afterwards. That's what they normally do, right?
Yeah, but how much would I have got? Like I break even for what?
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why, again,
in my case, I would have challenged it because I know a lot of constitutional lawyers that do pro bono stuff. So I would have.
It would have been nice to know them then, yeah.
Yeah, no, because this is the type of thing that you need to fight. You cannot allow people with power to abuse it just because they can with no consequences. And that's what bothers me, because what happens next is exactly what you said. Bill C9 will take that from a $60 charge to have you thrown out to hate speech, which could face up to 10 years in prison. Yep. This is insane. 10 years in prison. Up to 10 years in prison.
Yep. Yeah, that's crazy.
The thing is, like, had I fought it, like, let's say I was just rich and I was like, yeah, I'll throw $250,000 just to give him a hard time. I don't care. Had I did that, sure, I probably would have won. But then Bill C9 just overturns everything, and I'm back to square one.
That's wild.
Because if Bill C9 gets passed, well, then it's like, okay, it's different now, and they can charge me with hate speech. What did you say? What were you? And they can interpret anything as hate speech. That's the thing. I can preach a sermon that's like neutral or just like soft, and you can come in there and you can misinterpret anything to say anything.
Well, anyone can be offended, right?
Well, that's the thing. And like, I've been posting on Twitter every day, Bible verses. I've been saying this Bible verse is illegal in Canada, and then I post it, and people are like, you're lying. It's not illegal. Blah blah blah. Look, first of all, it's not the point that it's not illegal on paper. They're never going to put on paper the Bible is illegal. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works. The way it works is it's illegal for those they want it to be illegal for, right?
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
And that's the nuance. Is what I did was
the Quran will never be illegal. They'll never be. The Quran will never be.
No. But they if they don't like you, if they want you out, they'll get you out, even if what you're doing is completely lawful. And that's what I learned. So for me, the Bible is functionally illegal, because if there's any context in which I can't publicly proclaim the Bible, then it's illegal. Because free speech is either free or it's not.
Yep. There's no gray zone in free speech. You either have it or you don't.
You either have it everywhere in public or you don't. Now, I'm not saying you go out in public with a bullhorn and you harass people.
No.
But if I'm in the park and I'm preaching the Bible to people, and you don't have to listen, you can leave. That should never be illegal. And yet they can just say, well, it's prohibited activity. And they'll never tell me. Here's the thing. All I did was preach the Bible. So the prohibited activity here then must be interpreted as what? Preaching the Bible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What other interpretation do I have? Because that's all I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people have said, no, it's because you had the microphone. So I turned it off.
Yeah, that's stupid.
If the infraction was an amplification, then why didn't they put that on the ticket?
Well, yeah, I mean they kind of screwed themselves, right? Because by putting just they didn't give themselves a leg to stand on in court, which is obviously why they threw it out.
Yeah.
Well, Alan, I want to thank you for joining us. It
was a great chat.
It's just the beginning. I know a bunch of pastors that were arrested. Some went in jail. Like we had Derek Reimer on the show a few times. Mm-hmm. And this is just going to get worse. I'm fully aware. I'm a Christian too. And, I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to hide my speech. If my God and Savior got crucified for his words, that's a hard act to follow, but that's the act I need to follow. So it is what it is, but it is unfortunate that it is a reality. But at the same time, man, one thing I've been saying for a long time, and that's my biggest problem with Christianity, and it's not just Canadian, I've traveled through the US as well. We're too complacent. We're very lukewarm. Pastors don't have the balls to preach anymore. They don't have the balls to say the real truth. This is why I don't go to church on Sundays, because I'm not going to listen to a pussy talk about something that he doesn't have the balls to talk about the real stuff. You're more concerned about having to be well seen by your congregation than being the man that's supposed to tell the truth. And there's only one truth. There's not many truth. There's only one of that. And the expectation of God is that we tell the truth, his truth. And as a pastor, you don't want to say it, you shouldn't be up there. So it's our fault. We are in the situation that we are in, and we are to blame for this. But at the same time, that also tells me that we are the solution. So
Yep. Just to piggyback on that is no pastor in my city backed me up here. Not one.
Really?
And I know a lot of them, and they all know what happened. Not one said, "We got your back."
They were afraid. Paint a target on their back.
They're afraid. Because
crazy.
the community was like, "Oh, this guy was doing this. This guy was doing that." In the community page on Facebook where I live, it was a big thread about it. Someone took a picture and they're like, "Why are the cops here?" So it was a big scandal for a while in the community, and nobody wanted to touch it. But I was encouraged in that most of the comments on that thread were like, "Wow, it's illegal to preach the Bible now. Like, what about the Muslims? What about this? What about that?" So more of the general community had my back than the church had my back, which is pathetic.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, we're gonna, I think, put a pin in her there. I appreciate you taking the time, Alan. That was a great chat. Certainly keep us updated on that if anything more comes from that. But I think there's going to be a lot of these kind of stories over the next, 6 months, 12 months, unfortunately.
Yep.
Thanks for your time, Alan. I will definitely keep in touch, but continue fighting.
Appreciate you.
Like you, they're ready to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm going to keep saying what I need to say, and God is true. Let God be true, and every man a liar. So we're not backing down. He's
Amen to that.
Right on.